This video is all about formatting a worksheet. So how do we format once we've typed in data? And we're going to look at how we format not only the text and data, but also the sheet that you work on. If we take a look here, you'll see that we've got some data typed in, and I want to format the title at the very top of the sheet in cell A1. I can click on cell A1, and using the buttons just above me on the home ribbon, you have different sections. You have a section here called font, and you have a section here called alignment, and one called number. And we're going to look at all three of these to do our formatting. So we want to make this title a lot bigger, so we can come up here and you'll see there's two buttons, and if we hover over these, you'll see that the first one is called increase font size, the next one is decrease. So simply by clicking on these buttons we can increase, and you'll notice every time I click the button the text gets bigger and bigger. If I click on the button next to it, it gets smaller and smaller. So we can make our text a little bit bigger. We then want to apply some colour to this. Now, to change the colour of the title, we can use this button here, which is our font colour. Now you'll notice that on my ribbon it's showing the colour red. What that means is if I click on the button itself, it will change my font colour to red. However, if you want to choose a different colour, then you click on the little triangle just next to it. That's a little drop down arrow, and when you click on that it pops down a palette of various colours. Now you do have live preview, so as you hover your mouse over these you'll notice that you can preview the colour that it changes to. Now let's say for example I want to make this a shade of blue. When I click on the blue, you'll notice it's changed the text to blue, but it's also changed the colour of the button. What that means is if I need to choose that blue again later on, I can just click on the button itself. These buttons are what we call dynamic. They remember the last thing you chose. I've now got the title looking bigger and more colourful. I then want to turn on bold just to thicken up the text. So I'm going to click on this letter B here, which is bold. You also have buttons for italic and underline. Once I've done that, I then want to change some of the text of the other titles. So for example, down here I want to change all of these titles down the side to be aligned differently. Now when you type into a cell you can have text on the left, the middle or the right. These are all on the left hand side. If I click and drag my mouse down here, we can then choose from our alignment section up here. You'll see there's a group of three buttons. The first one is to align left, center and right. If I choose center, you'll notice that all of the text gets centered within the cell. If we choose right align, it moves it to the right. So you can choose which one you want just by clicking. So if we put these to the right, I then want to make these titles bold so they stand out. So I go back to the button with the B on and click on that to make them bold. We can do the same for the titles going across the top. If we highlight these by dragging our mouse over those, we can click on the bold button to make those bold. Now you can do other things with this. For example, the titles across the top, we would like those to stand out. So we can drag our mouse over these, and this time instead of changing the font colour, we can change the background colour, which is denoted by this little paint pot tipping over. If we click on the drop down, we can then choose one of the colours so it fills in the background. So for this one we could choose a dark blue. Now by choosing a dark background we can't see the colour of the text, so we'll change the colour from this blue to white. That gives us the formatting of the titles across the top. Once we've applied some formatting to the titles, we then want to apply formatting to the numbers. So we'll highlight all of the numbers, and if you look on the home ribbon in the middle in the number section, you'll notice that by default all the cells are formatted to general, but we can click on this drop down and you'll see Microsoft have given us a selection of presets, and one of them is number, or we can have currency, which will include not only the decimal point but also the pound sign. If we click on currency, this will bring up the formatting for the numbers. Now you may notice at this time we've got some hash symbols displayed. Now most people think this is an error. It's not an error. It means the column isn't wide enough, which brings us nicely onto the next topic of how do we widen the columns. Now we can widen the columns by moving our mouse up to the top of the sheet. You can't widen the columns on the sheet itself. You move your mouse up to where the letters are for the columns, A, B, C, D. If we wanted to make this column D wider, we can move the mouse between the letters D and E. You'll notice that the cursor changes to a double-headed arrow. We can click on that and stretch it to the right. You can see you can drag this left or right to make the column wider, and that's how you widen the columns. For example, if we wanted to widen the A column, then we move our mouse between A and B, click and drag. Now there is a shortcut here that you can use where you select multiple columns and do them all together. Say for example we want columns B, C, D, E and F to all be the same width. We can move our mouse onto the letter B. You can't do this on the sheet. Move up to B and then with your mouse click and drag so you select all of these columns you want adjusted. Once you've got those selected, you can then move your mouse between any of these columns. It doesn't matter which one. So for example between D and E, so we get the double-headed arrow. We can then click and drag to adjust how wide we want that to be, but when we let go of the mouse, you'll notice that all the other columns snap to an identical width. You can apply the same rule to rows as well. You can adjust the height of a row. Now you'll notice our row 1 here is a little bit squashed for the title, so I'm going to move the mouse so it's between 1 and 2. You get the double-headed arrow, click and drag, and we can pull that down to make this a lot bigger. Now the final part of the formatting we want to look at is this title. We decide we want to center the title neatly across our spreadsheet. For this we can use our mouse to select cell A1 and drag it to F1. That's the width of our sheet. Once you've highlighted several of those cells, we're going to use a button here on the alignment. It's called Merge and Center. Now if you have a screen that's quite small, you may not see the words Merge and Center next to the button. You can hover over the buttons and it will display the name of the button. When you click on this, it's going to do two things. It's going to merge all those cells into one and then center the title. and there it is there. Now of course that looks pretty good, but the text you'll notice is sitting along the bottom of the cell. If you note the height of our cell, you can move this to the top or the middle. We've already seen that we can use these three buttons here to adjust the horizontal alignment. We can move the title to the left, to the center, or to the right. But if you look at the three buttons just above those, you'll notice from the pictures I can have the title at the top of the cell, in the middle, or at the bottom. For our sheet, we want it in the middle. And that's how you format data and numbers.